Good evening, everybody. My name is Crystal Singh. I'm a landscape architect at Cornell Rothschild & Partners based in New York. And I'm also the co-chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of ASLA New York. We'd like to let you know that this webinar will be recorded so that it will be available to those who cannot make it tonight. Our committee is very excited to present this webinar series that focuses on BIPOC professional in landscape architecture. We're pairing up an established landscape architect and an emerging professionals and ask them to talk about their career and life experience in a rather casual format. Our goal is to advocate for the talent and contributions of our BIPOC members and also highlight and celebrate the diversity in our profession. This is our third webinar of the series. The first one, we talked with Elizabeth Kennedy, the founder of EKLA, who's also our second Black Landscape Fellow of New York. The second webinar, we talked to Richard Aloma of Rutgers University based in New Jersey, and he was our first Latino fellow. These recordings are available on YouTube, and I'll post the link very soon. I personally love just downloading it on my phone and watch it during my commute, so I hope you do so too. Let me introduce you to our speakers tonight. Taewook. Taewook is our first Asian fellow at ASLA New York, who just got the title last year. And he's also the other co-chair of the DEI committee, and he's also a board member. This webinar series was originally his idea. He founded his office, Supermass Studio, in 2011, and you have probably seen his great work at the Newark and LaGuardia airport when you were traveling. Another speaker of tonight is Chen. She won our ASLA National Conference Grant in 2023. And Anne earned her Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Virginia with a minor in Global Sustainability. She later earned a master's degree of Landscape Architecture from Harvard GSC. And she's now working as an architect and Gensler. Okay, so without further ado, Anne and Taewook, please take it away.
All right, thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, Crystal.
Yeah, hi everyone. And Taewook, we have been chatting before this and many times in informal setting. And the way we wanted to structure this dialogue is to go through like your entire career journey, right? Starting even from your childhood experience, like growing up in your family. So throughout today, this evening, you will look into his different chapters of his life. So we're going to start from the very early on. For me, I grew up in a family of like doctors, physicians, so very high rigor parents. And Taewook, why don't you tell us about like what is it like growing up in your family? I think you mentioned they are educators and researchers, and did they have any expectations for you in terms of choosing what to do, what to study, and how you landed in design and like landscape architecture?
Okay, and let the dialogue begin. I'm actually a little nervous because I've done many presentations about my work, but I think this is probably the first time that I actually talk about my personal life in public. So that makes me a little nervous, but hopefully it's entertaining enough for everyone. So I'm originally from South Korea, Seoul, and I came from a family of scholars. So my parents were both professors. My father was professor of education. My mom was professor of Korean history. They were both PhDs. My brother was professor of marketing. My uncle was professor of electrical engineering. So like many Asian families, our family value education very highly. And when I grew up, the only worthy worthy of discussion in my family was to become a professor. And in Korea and like many other Asian countries, professors are also highly respected. They may not make a lot of money, but they are very respected and they are clear leaders of the society. So I think that's why my parents expected their children to become professors. So I first went to study horticulture at college. And at the time, I thought I want to become a scientist because I grew up as a 70s kid in South Korea, where it was trying to become a developing country. The science was the only way for many children to become successful, contribute to the country. So if you ask any children, their dream would be either become a president or scientist. So I went to horticulture school, tried to study horticultural plant biology. And then I quickly found it was the most boring thing in the whole world. But I always liked to draw and making things. Probably a lot of our landscape architect colleagues found similar. And then I found landscape architecture, or actually garden design, because it was a horticulture school. There's a class on one class on garden design. So I found landscape architecture that way, and quickly I found that is what I really wanted to do. However, I couldn't really tell that to my parents because I'm supposed to become a scientist and become a PhD and a professor. So when I went to the grad school, there's a grad school entrance exam. I actually registered and went to the exam without telling my parents. So until the date of the entrance exam to the grad school, my parents thought I was going to my horticulture grad school for the entrance exam. And that was my alma mater, Korea University. And my father was a professor at Seoul National, another top school in Korea. So I told them like, oh, I'm going to the exam today. And my father said, wait, isn't your school exam like Thursday this week? It was like Tuesday. Today is my university's exam day. So I just caught off guard and I had to tell them I'm actually applying for landscape architectural design school at your university, father. So they got upset, but they couldn't really yell at me because I was ready to go to the entrance exam. But so that's how I really entered the profession of landscape architecture. There wasn't no family members who's in design or art in my family. I was kind of the odd one in the family. I had an uncle who was an architect, but not blood related because his husband to my aunt, my mom's sister. But he was a very typical genius architect. He was really a genius. He was super smart guy, great architect, but he couldn't keep a job because every architecture firm he went, everyone else around him looks just so stupid to him. And he couldn't stand other people. So he ended up jumping job to job to job. And then he left architecture, actually immigrated to America, like all year generation of immigrants to become the grocery store business person with my aunt. So my mom had a very negative perception of architect, like architect smart, but they couldn't get along with other people. They can't keep a job. So that was kind of my first chapter to entering the landscape architecture and design profession. But I think you have probably the similar experience in your family too.
Yeah, definitely. But I wasn't that courageous where I did not tell my parents. Well, I also didn't tell my parents the fact that I applied to UVA, UVA School of Architecture, and that was actually the only design school I applied to. The rest of them were all pre-med. So they knew I applied to UVA, but they didn't know that I was applying to a specific design school. And they know that I had my top choice, all like pre-med, biomedical engineering, like anything to do with engineering and medicine, was like all of my college application. And what happened is, at the end of the day, thankfully, my SAT score wasn't high enough. So I came to the country when I was 17. So I was learning English as I was applying to college. And my SAT score wasn't high enough. So all of the first choice I didn't get into. So UVA is actually the best school out of all the schools I applied to, that I got in. So to my parents, of course, they value uh, the engineering and the medicine, but the ranking of the school is also important. So I was very lucky in that sense that they said, yeah, UVA, it's a really good public school. Yeah, then let's go there. So I got lucky that way. Um, but yeah, great to hear that I'm not the only one going through this type of struggle, trying to convince.
It's very Asian, like the worst of things turned into the best of the things.
Yeah, exactly. Um, it worked out. So now after you've studied design and when did you move to the US? Like how was your journey to go from Korean to here?
So I came to the United States in 1995 to study a postgraduate degree at Harvard GSD. But before that, so in my first professional landscape architecture design school in Korea, or at least I got into the best college university in Korea, the Seoul National University.
Mhm.
So I thought my parents should be happy.
Mhm.
But then I think they still had a reservation. Like I remember my mom slipping a note under my door. In a note, she couldn't tell me like not to study, or she's not supposed to tell me what to do. Like you should study this or you should study that. It's not the right thing. But I think in her mind, she still had a reservation. So instead of telling me, she wrote a letter, and in that letter, she wrote, uh, "You don't really like to be in the sun. Like you want to study landscape architecture. Do you think you can take to be in the sun all day?" I think in her mind, landscape architects are people who uh, work in the field all
I
day
see.
during
I
the
see.
summer, and like she's probably the one who has like, so what do you guys do in the winter? So I remember that note. So when I applied to Harvard, and then I got accepted, and I think that was the first time they were actually happy that I am studying landscape architecture because I got accepted at Harvard. And so I have a brother, is my brother and myself. And my brother, as a first child, he was always the model child. He was the straight A student, top of his class. He did everything my parents wanted him to become. I was okay, but I was not like top of the class. I always was more of a troublemaker. I tried to do something that I wanted to do, not not necessarily my parents' dream. So it was actually it felt good that I finally made my parents happy and feel proud after all the trouble I made in the family. And my father was, I think, he was a man of few words. He is like typical kind of Asian father who worked so hard. And he was really nice man, but he didn't speak a lot. But he was, I think he was extremely proud. So he visited me to US a couple of times, to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and he told me like the episode at the customs, the customs officer asked him like, "Oh, so why are you visiting US?" And he said, "Oh, my son studies at Harvard. That's why I'm coming here." So I was a student at the time. Like I didn't feel comfortable about that kind of bragging. I told him like, "Oh, Dad, like what did you what would happen if the officer just tells you like, oh, it's just a school, isn't it?" Like, and years later, I actually regret that episode because I still remember that conversation. Like my father was just really proud of his son and his achievement that his son finally, what he studied, he got his PhD in US like early 70s, one of probably first few Koreans who came here and got higher education. So his son going to Harvard is a big deal for him. I should have just embraced it instead of telling him not to do that. But you don't really realize that when you were much younger.
Yeah, it's definitely like for the parents, it's a milestone for them to see that kind of achievement, and like they've spent so much time making sure that we get the best education, and the fact that you got into Harvard, to them it's gonna be like, wow, their like entire effort paid off, and it's something that they can be very proud of. So yeah, definitely relate to that. We have a lot to cover, so let's talk about maybe like when you are choosing to practice instead of going to academia, like your family, there's PhD, there's a lot of focus in that. And how did you decide between like staying in academia or even getting a PhD versus going into practice?
Yeah, so when I came to Harvard, I think I was even throughout my time at Harvard, I think I was still in that kind of academic environment from my upbringings. So continuing PhD to PhD was always part of the idea, although I always wanted to have at least a few years of experience. But at the end of my study, I really fell in love with my work, the landscape architecture. And I wanted to become a landscape architect, not landscape architecture professor.
Mm.
So that's how I went to the practice. At the time, George Hargraves was the chairperson of the school, and I had a studio. And my first job was at Hargraves Associates, which I'm very grateful to start first work in the United States at such a great office. But my parents did not really like that idea. They didn't know who George Hargraves was. They thought I would continue doing my PhD and come back to become still a professor. And I kind of understand that. Like they were so excited that I went to Harvard, like the highest academic school, like or one of the highest in the world. And it's obvious for them to get my PhD there and to become the greatest scholar. And my brother, who was also a marketing professor, could not really understand why I was doing that. Because in his mind, he's a marketing professor, he's the number guy. With all those efforts and finances going into studying in the United States, studying at Harvard, in his mind, I should get in return or higher return for that investment. And like working as a design staff at a great firms like Hargraves Associates at the time, you don't really get much. You get great experience. You get to work on the great projects, but you don't get a lot of money. And he couldn't really understand, neither my parents. So I think I had a number of discussions or conversations more with my brother because we were closer. But it's actually funny that they never really understand working in even at the greatest design firm of the time was not satisfactory.
Yeah, is that when you joined a more corporate firm?
No, so I was very happy to learn all those things working at Hargraves Associates. And after that, I continue to work at field operation with James Corner, another great firm at the time and to this day. And I get to work on all these really great projects around the world, learning a lot of things. But after about 10 years working under these great masters, and I think they are really great masters of the previous century and into early in this century, I felt like I had to make a decision whether I should continue staying there and continue to become their second-hand man, supporting their visions and great work. But then it will be like that forever. Or I should start doing my own work, own practice. So that's when I started thinking about leaving those master firms. And that's when AECOM, at the time it was Edo. Edo just joined the AECOM empire. It became Edo AECOM. But Edo reached out to me, offered me to become a design director at their New York office. So it was a great time and great opportunity for me because I will be responsible for my own work. There's no George or Jim at AECOM. But also it's not just another big corporate engineering firm. It's Edo, the firm with a great history and legacy. But Edo was not necessarily known as a great design firm at that time. They were more known for a solid delivery firm with a great experience. And they didn't like that. They wanted to they wanted to be known as a great design firm as well. They wanted to step up to be the design flagship. So that's when they started hiring designers around the country and around the world. And New York was one of their flagship design office in their plan. And that's how I was hired to lead their New York office.
Yeah. How long did you spend there?
I was at AECOM for about a little short of 4 years. So I joined there in 2008, which was at the tail end of the great economic bubble. So when I joined, it was really great. I was focusing on all these great design or practice experimentations. There was a lot of experimentations on collective creativity, for instance, and like a large corporate office with all these collective mind can still be creative and innovative like a small office. We did a lot of kind of new office culture building. It's a big corporate office, but we try to make it feel like kind of creative studio offices. So we tried like a global design summit. I organized a number of multi-office global design charrettes when I was doing like international design competitions. I personally like gathered the top designers, landscape architects, not just landscape architects, but landscape architects, urban designers, sustainability engineers from those global offices, and put together a really kind of comprehensive, great competition proposal in a very short period of time. So those are very rewarding. It looked like this idea of collective creativity was working. And we had this great backup of corporate office with all the resources, structures, even funding. But then in 2009, economic bubble bursted and the economy tanked. And all of that experimentations tanked with the economy. And then it revealed like what a publicly traded corporate office really needs to be in a time like that. And it all came down to two words: stakeholders and profit. So in a bad economy, it's a publicly traded company. So the owner of the company were the stakeholders. And the only thing that stakeholders care about was their stock price, the profit. So during those economic downturn, like 2009, 10, I had to spend half of my time fighting against the corporate profit finance offices to get project approval to do the competition projects from Asia. At the time, there was no project in US, like 0 project in the United States. The only projects available were from Asia. So I managed to bring kind of small budgeted paid competitions from Korea, many of them from South Korea, some from China. They come with a small compensation, but they have some of them had the big promises if you were successful. So, and that was the only way to bring whatever revenue to the company at the time with a bigger promise for the actual projects. And the corporate office didn't like that. In their mind, these paid competitions, they always end up losing more money, like spending more money. Their money holes. As a corporate, better management or better way of doing it is just lay off people and downsize it. And then we hire people when the economy rebounds. And it might be true for a corporate office book, but for creative professional, with all these team members and staff working with us, it's not always working that way. You cannot grab people out of the street to start a great design project even after the economy comes back. You need to maintain your team. And that's when I realized, okay, this is how corporate works. And it's not for me. This is not a creative design office should be. And this is not what I wanted. So that's when I left Edo AECOM. It actually became AECOM by the time I left, so Edo's name. And it was 2011. Economy was still in big recession. So I remember every day in the news, they were talking about like how many jobs lost or created in New York City It's like today in New York City, we have like 52 new jobs in that range. I was telling myself, okay, I'm actually creating jobs. I'm contributing to this New York economy because I started with two staff and myself.
Yeah.
So I created 3 jobs to this New York economy out of all these 50 new jobs today or whatever at the time. But that's how I got started with my own firm.
Yeah. Wow, that's definitely like a lot to take on when you start your own firm. And did you have any guidance on how to start a firm, or it just came to be that you have to learn everything from scratch?
I did not. So I think that was the crazy part. So I came from a different country. I didn't have any family members here. I don't have any like connections other than the connections I built through my work. I didn't have big financial backing from my family, and I I was not able to save a lot of money working as a landscape architect. My wife was a urban planner, so I didn't have a lawyer wife or a doctor wife or a spouse. So I actually had to everything from scratch from zero. So the only I think the only capital I had was the network of people, like connections of the people I built through my 10 years of practice. And I was still lucky in that regard because first I worked at all these great firms, and they were, especially the Hargraves Associates and field operations, they were the ones who led the multidisciplinary practice in landscape architecture on large scale. So I was able to work with a lot of different people, like engineers and different disciplines, architects, and they all became my source of kind of working capital to start my company.
Yeah. Wow. That's definitely a huge success, starting your own firm. And but in the meantime, you're also doing advocacy and services at the ASLA. Like you take on a lot of different roles. And was there any particular event that made you want to be part of this, or how did you become active in these committees?
So that came much earlier, but like I should not skip the story of my parents in this. So I want to kind of point out when I joined AECOM, my parents were finally happy that I got out of these small, long hour, low wage firms, and I joined this like huge multinational corporate with like 25,000 employees all over the world. I was the design director and later associate principal.
Yeah.
So they were happy. And then when I told them like I'm finally starting my own firm, and they flipped over, they got really upset. Like, are you crazy? You're and especially in that economy in 2011.
Right.
There was no job, no project. And they were like so concerned that I'm leaving the comfort of the corporate office, starting my own firm with no money, no finance, no connections. So that was pretty challenging. Later, I learned that they told me a few times, try to stop me, but well, obviously I was not listening to them. They tried to go around. I was told about this by my wife later. They tried to talk to my wife, getting me out of starting a new office or practice business. She didn't actually relay those things at the time. She told me like much later. Did you know your mom like called me several times? So she was kind of my the accomplice in the crime.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but when I started my firm, my focus was not on like advocacy work or ASLA or like even people. Like I was like everyone else, and I was much younger. My focus was on doing this really like creating really cool things like people have never seen before. I was really focused on this kind of creating physical things, the design. And then as I have more experience over the years, and I also got to meet a lot of people, like real people, like community members, clients, because I was leading a small firm. I had to do everything by myself. I had to go to all the community meetings, client meetings. And as I meet more people, and I realized it's really not the physical design, especially in landscape architecture, where a lot of things are very fluid. It's really the people who's filling your landscape that completes your project. So my focus slowly shifted to people and their stories and their experiences in the landscape. And that's when I started getting more interested in advocacy work, serving at ASLA New York. I was looking for ways to kind of give back to our profession and to the community. And that's when I got a call from ASLA New York to run for the board. And then I joined the board. But then the Black Lives Matter happened in 2020 with George Floyd, and the whole country was hit by a storm at that point. So I didn't think much of the kind of racial issues until that time, because I think I was kind of living in my own privilege, coming from, even though I came from different culture, from different country, like I was in comfort of good caring family background, good education, good respected jobs as a professional. I didn't think those racial issues applied to me, even though I'm one of those minority person at the time. And then George Floyd happened, Black Lives Matters happened. Then I started realizing this is beyond my thought at the time. So I started getting more engaged in, I pay more attention to the development of the events at the time. And then big wake-up moment was when it evolved into the Stop Asian Hate movement, when Asian people started getting attacked randomly on the streets. And that's when I realized my privilege was nothing. It was just all in my head. I can go out to the street anytime, and some weirdo can always attack me. No matter how educated I was, no matter how great family I came from, no matter how great work I was doing, I could get beaten just because of my skin color on the street by a random person. So that's first time I realized all these issues, the racial issues, discriminations, it's not others' issue. It can be my issue, and I can be in this shoe anytime without even knowing. And I think it's that moment that I started putting myself in their shoes. And I think it's that kind of empathy that I started learning really changed me and got me into this diversity and equity inclusion movement and the racial issues.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I've benefited from that initiative you started, like the grant to go to the ASLA conference,
Right.
the
So
national
you're
conference.
actually, but you're also very active in diversity, equity, and inclusion movement or work through AIA, right?
Yeah, so that was why I started back in Washington, D.C. And I had this amazing opportunity to be involved in an organization called The Wield, and it was led by Gazelle. And she just, so at that time, I was very early in my professional career, like probably first or second year into my practice. And I was seeking opportunities, opportunities to um, like take on more responsibility, like anything that I'm not able to get from my day-to-day job, I got from that organization. So I feel like those DEI initiatives or any initiatives or subcommittees like that, it's like it's great that you have a group of people that share the same value system and you are working together on something together collectively. And that effort, it's as if you're like telling a story and it has this ripple effect. So like Gazelle, she was able to touch me and then having me so motivated to do work in this area and then take on additional responsibilities. And eventually, later on, I realized it is a leadership skill that you're developing. Like you're developing a lot of soft skills that you're might not be able to at work because of like the number of years of experience you had. So those are really wonderful. And then continuing that in New York, and then finding there's even a larger group of people behind this effort. So that's wonderful. And I was saying how I benefited from your initiative is the opportunity to go to the national conference. And that was amazing because at that time I was just getting my landscape licensure and had this um, a moment of rethinking what am I doing uh, in this profession that I'm serving uh, certain clients that doesn't really understand the value that you bring to a project. And sometimes when they're arguing for things does not align with your personal value or just simply wasn't the right thing to do on a project, I leaned into landscape architecture, and the conference was so amazing. Like it made me feel like I have such a strong group of professional friends that are all behind the same value. So yeah, it was definitely really amazing, and that grant was made that possible. So yeah, like
Oh, that was
I
really
definitely
great to
want
hear.
to yeah continue to support this effort and hopefully I know this year we have a national grant winner too. So I hope they enjoy their experience. Yeah, it's a great legacy to have like
Mhm.
having something to continue long after.
Mhm.
So let's talk about becoming fellow. So the year that I attended the ASL National Conference is also the year that you were elevated to fellow. And you were so kind to invite me to join your table. And it was very touching to see that happening. Like um, I and you, like we were definitely the minority. Like I don't see anyone, even my age, being invited to events like that. So to me, it's such an honor. But I wanted to hear from you, like what is it like being recognized and elevated as a fellow?
So becoming a fellow, it's a huge honor, unexpected honor, because I actually never thought I would be a fellow until nomination committee contacted me. But I was very active as a diversity equity committee chair at the time. And I also realized when I was nominated, if I become a fellow, I would be the first API fellow in ASLA New York history. And of all the places with this much diversity we have in our community, that was quite remarkable in not a very good way that we never had. But we have a very few people of color in our fellows. So I felt like a big honor, but at the same time, like a huge responsibility to becoming a first API fellow. Before that, Elizabeth Kennedy, who was our first BIPOC dialogue speaker, was the only second Black fellow in ASLA New York. And then who was our second speaker, Richard Aloma, was the first Latinx fellow. And then I was the first API fellow. And all of these only happened in like last 4 years. So it tells us we still have a lot of work to do and a lot more to go. But what I learned through becoming a fellow is being a fellow is a big recognition, but before it's a recognition, it's a bigger responsibility. And I'm extremely happy and like also proud that becoming a fellow doesn't necessarily mean you're doing like really great projects or really cool projects. Like you can become a fellow by doing a really cool project. If it's like super cool, you can become a fellow, but you don't become a fellow just by doing good projects. Becoming a fellow, I learned, means you actually being recognized as good landscape architect. And a good landscape architect here means not just a great designer. It's more about how you made contributions to the society and the profession. And that's the part that I got to be more proud about and rewarding, that my work was recognized as not just like some cool hotshot design, but more as how they contributed to people and to the community. And that's also a big responsibility for me. So I feel like becoming a fellow is not like the final recognition, but they're just giving me a new task, responsibility to do a lot more.
Yeah, for the interest of time, I do want to open this up to Q&A. So everyone in the webinar and Zoom meeting, feel free to either unmute or put in a chat if you have any questions.
Yeah. So I cannot skip my parents here again. So when I become a fellow, they were finally happy that I joined this profession, and now they're very proud.
Yeah, that's so nice. It's a nice happy ending to your parents' story. I like how they came along, and I think same with my parents when they first understand the fact that I was going to architecture school. They thought it was engineering, and now they've started to see my work and knowing like why I'm doing the type of work that I'm doing, they are also very proud. So yeah, it's always nice to have parents and family support for sure. Anyone have any questions?
Oh, can we go to the gallery mode so we can see everyone?
Yeah.
I have one question just from
Yeah.
running a small business. I'm just curious because found myself in a position similar or what a little bit different, but I was running someone else's business due to an illness. And one thing I struggled with was like how to make a firm financially profitable. And so I'm curious what kind of guidance you have on those types of things and what if you that was something you were you had an intuition about, financial stuff. It's not something at least here in the US we learn about in school. But I was curious if that was something that you had a team member that helped you or if you were just really good at that yourself.
So Matt, I guess that's a question to me
Yeah.
as a small business owner. So I don't really have a finance guidance for you, unfortunately. But I can tell you it was it's been a financial roller coaster. But it's improving slowly. So as a new firm, especially with a focus on a lot of public projects and later communities and greater good, it's not easy to make immediate financial return. So first few years, I paid my due. It was financial struggle, although we were doing all these really cool projects or proposals or competitions. Financially, it's hard. So, first few years, I got into camping, and I become like outdoor man. Also because I love camping, but also because I couldn't afford to go to a hotel. It was lucky that my kids were younger. They all love going outdoors and camping, and it helped. But you have to find like all these creative ways to reduce your costs and getting your family support to put up with. I I am hugely thankful to my family in that matter because they are the ones really put up with. I was doing the things that I like. I was having fun, great time. They didn't. So I think it's really important to get the family support during those years. But then after several years, we had our first major project built. That was the LaGuardia Airport Terminal B and Mulberry Commons Park in Newark, New Jersey. Two like major public projects, high profile. And once we got something like those built, the reward was huge. Maybe not as much financially, but the reward was huge. And it started helping with the finances. We started getting bigger fees, more reasonable fees. So my goal these days is actually raising our fees to more reasonable level. We have this motto like no project too small and no fees too high.
Thank you.
Hello, Taewook and Annie. This is Han from Minnesota.
Hi, Han.
Hello. I just want to say thank you for put yourself out there, especially hearing your personal story, the journey from that Asian culture that everything is not good enough. Only higher education and be the best student is the highest achievement you can do. And I also come from that thing, and especially I was in the ASLA chapter president and PR meeting. I know you fight very hard about the DEI and what we need to hold our core value during this uncertain times. So I just very appreciate what you are doing. I think one thing I want to bring up as myself, it's a mid-career BIPOC or Asian American. I find now we have scholarships for people as emerging professionals to take a licensure exam to go to the national conference. But I find when I'm 13, 14 years into my practice and I look around, there are few Asian American is still practicing, especially female in the Midwest. And there isn't a structure to support the mid-career, not to say the Asian American mid-career practitioners. So I don't know what we can do, because I can only help people that a younger generation graduate after me, because I have gone through that journey, but I don't know what's the journey in front of me. So I'm constantly in this confusing phase and trying to figure out. So I don't know, Taewook, do you have any advice to me and Annie about how to find the support in this mid-career when you decide to open your firm, who you go to for advice and your emotional support and guidance?
So Han, I think that's a great question, and it's probably the question we always carry ourselves. At any point in career, I remember I always have similar question, and even now, I became a fellow, but I told you it's not the end. Like, what now? What I should do after this point, and it's still a question, unanswered question. So we're trying to figure that out. But I know you're on a great course. I admire your work, both as a mid-career professional. You're actually beyond, I think, getting beyond the mid-career. You're really in the leadership role in your company in the Midwest, and you're taking a leadership as the chapter president of ASLA. And I think that those are all like huge achievements. I'm very proud that I get to know you through ASLA and learn about like all the work you're doing. And as a fellow API landscape architect and as an immigrant landscape architect, it feels really good to see people like you continuing the work. But like you said, there aren't a lot of us, especially at your level, at the leadership level. We have a lot of younger generation, especially API landscape architects. But they are all having a hard time moving up. There is number of reasons, cultural reasons. There are discriminations. Obviously, there is first perceptions of their values or skills or leadership levels, combination of all those things. So, but that's why we're doing this. That's why I started this BIPOC dialogue. Because before, when they look up, there was no one that looked like them. I didn't think I was to become a fellow, because when I think of fellow, they're all like white men in their like 50s and 60s, little chubby. I didn't see myself in there. So, and when I think of great landscape architect, in my younger junior years, there was no image of us or myself. They were all or mostly white men. They were great leaders and designers, but there was no diversity. There was no immigrant. So it's really important that we show them there are people like them, that look like them. They can look up to. They can watch what we're doing. And I think you're doing great work, and I'm sure you will do similar things in your chapter in your region.
Thank you, Taewook. And I just want to say, I don't know how many younger people, Asian American or API people go through that process. I have the same process like you. I don't see myself as a colored person, but later I realized it doesn't matter how you perceive yourself, it's how other people perceive you. And that is so hard to get away from your appearance. So we have to really reconcile with ourselves about what our skin's color, what our culture means to ourselves. We can't be only very silent, just to say we work very hard. We need to go out there and do advocacy. And the design a lot of times is advocacy, to advocate for the people who use our design and for the community. So thank you again for doing this and have this series of presentation.
Yeah, I think what I've learned all these years is we really need to embrace who we are and be proud of it. Because again, when I was younger, at that 32, I tell people like, oh, I don't want to become the best Korean or API landscape architect. I want to become the great landscape architect, period. But again, it's because when I think of great landscape architect at the time, I didn't see API or Korean or Latinx or Black people. They're all mostly just mostly white male. But I think now I learned I was foolish, but now I'm very happy to be the best landscape architect who is Korean and who is an API person. And I want all my colleagues to feel the same way, whether they are Latinx professional, Black people, Native Americans, who can become the great landscape architect and to be proud of who they are. And I think that's how we can actually add values to our profession and to the society, because we are the one who adds diversity to the profession. We are the one who makes our profession and society more equitable, and we are the ones who make it more inclusive. So we have our role in this, I think, society and the profession. We have our values that we're adding here.
Thank you so much, Taewook. Thank you. And it was a great discussion and much needed in such a climate problems. I would like to thank everybody's attendance tonight, and feel free to check out our previous recordings, and also feel free to check out our DEI committee homepage on the homepage of ASLA New York. We will end this webinar here. Thank you for your attendance. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yep.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
Good job, everyone.
Be diverse.
Thank you.